The first question I have for the panelists is really about the opportunity, right? If you think about when GPT-3 was released, ChatGPT in November, and now GPT-4 in March, we're already over 1 billion users on that platform. And the pace of innovation is incredible. It's just something we've never seen before. And so if you're a startup, if you're an entrepreneur, my question is like, how do you find time? How do you find a place to compete? And how do you compete? What should your strategy be? Maybe I'll start with Akankshu here and then later with Sumit.
Thanks, Anoop. Hey everyone, nice to be here. My name is Akankshu. As Anoop said, this is something I think we've all been waiting for a very long time. I remember when I was in grad school, AI was supposed to be the next big thing. It's taken time, but it's finally here. And we've gone through a bit of a journey. I think Uber was one of the first companies in the new mobile wave. And we also had deep investments in AI, but it was starting from a lot of tree-based models and then moved into a lot of deep learning neural nets. But generative AI is sort of that one-step function unlock that is genuinely for a very good reason getting everyone very, very excited. Now to your question, if you're an entrepreneur, what does that mean for you? I think it is genuinely a once-in-a-lifetime or a once-in-a-generation opportunity. But how do you create businesses around it? At the end, it'll come down to experiences. That is what consumers actually care about. No one cares what technology you have behind the scenes. Does that meaningfully make my life better as a consumer? Or even as a business, does that really make me more productive? So what are going to be those magical experiences that creative entrepreneurs here and everywhere else around the world are going to build? And then how you build moats around it, I think it'll all come down to data. Because the core technology is going to get commoditized fairly quickly. It'll go down the cost curve and become very readily accessible. And more of it is going to make it to the edge. Because right now, running a large language model, and Sumit is going to talk a lot about that, is very prohibitive and very expensive. But what is the right combination and balance between running your data combined with your model at the edge, while it is being supported for a lot of the heavy lifting at the server? That's where a lot of the excitement is, and personally, I think a lot of value is going to be created.
Sumit, would you like to add to it?
Yeah, I think, at least from my perspective, I think of this in layers. So there's the infrastructure layer, and that could be cloud, edge, training, or serving. There is the foundation model layer, right? So, Google's Palm AI, OpenAI, all of those are the foundation models. Then there's the tools layer. You take a foundation model, you potentially build a tool that optimizes it, tunes it, and so on. And then the next layer is specialization. That would be someone taking LLMs or generative AI and building a vertical application. Now you could build it for yourself, or you could service another. It could be B2B, B2C, there would be many opportunities. And then I believe there's a layer right above that, which is the general companies, more consumers. And the reason why I bring that layer out is because I think there's going to be random innovation that we don't know that's going to happen in the top layer. And for example, you've seen Chrome extensions that you can just launch on a website and tell it to summarize this article, right? So there's like a top layer too, which is the enthusiast or the regular you and me, or even a large company that can build it. So I think as an entrepreneur, what I'd encourage you all to think about is these layers. And where do you want to play in the layer, right? Infrastructure, foundation models, tools, vertical solutions, or servicing sort of the end customer.
That makes awesome sense. And Sabeer, as we transition to you, I think let's up-level this to even beyond startups to companies, right? And if you see what's happened, both positive and negative recently, Czech is being impacted negatively with the advent of ChatGPT. But Khan Academy just did a fantastic video on how they're improving education by creating essentially a personalized tutor. So if you're a company that's being impacted, if this seems to be happening to you, what should you do?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think you have no choice but to embrace it, because regardless of how many people sign petitions against this train has left the station. And the real opportunity here is that all of human knowledge now is available to you in the form of a query. And it all just depends on how intelligently you query the system. So when people talk of verticals, it has now become so much easier to program in the vertical space itself. You don't have to worry about training models and trying to figure out how to make it respond to what you're saying. You just take a course in prompt engineering and ask the right questions, and you get phenomenal answers. You just need to find the 5 best programmers, and ChatGPT essentially, or ChatGPT-like services, will help you, enable you to write code as good as those 5 best programmers you have in a company. So what do you do with the other,
Spicy question.
So that is it's both, it's two-way. So what this really means is we are headed into a creative economy where individuals with imagination and creativity will be more sought after than individuals who've got a formal training in some area of knowledge, some body of knowledge. Because past knowledge is irrelevant now. It's what you do with it and how you think of services, products that don't even exist today. And those are the kind of thinkers and dreamers that will flourish over the next 10 to 20 years.
That's awesome, Sabeer. And going to Asif, right? Because you actually teach people, and so this is a profound change from your perspective. Can you add your 2 cents to it?
So the way I look at it, and to add more color to what we just said, see, these large language models, in a way, they have learned from all of human knowledge that we have. But in learning from that knowledge, it isn't just knowledge that they have gained. There's the distillate of sort of the collective intelligence. When you take 5 experts, we know today that it's better to take the collective wisdom of the experts, the wisdom of crowd, rather than one expert, which is one reason you see these large language models, they tend to outdo us in many of the tasks that we do. So what is the opportunity that it brings? Once you realize that everything that we used to know, like Sameer just mentioned, we have these engines that will take the best of us and do it for us. What does it leave as an opportunity? See, if you look at the whole framework of education, initially, if you go back 300-400 years with the Renaissance and so forth, it was to produce the Renaissance man, the creative, dynamic, thoughtful human being. Somewhere along the Industrial Revolution, we started producing very efficient human beings, efficient workers. But now, we are in a new world in which these large language models are far more going to be far better as efficient machines than we are. So we need to refocus education and bring back the roots of creating creative, intelligent, thoughtful human beings. And I think to do so, to bring a radical change in education, where we go back to the roots of what education was supposed to be, I think that will be transformative, and it will lead to a lot of creativity and innovation going forward.
Thanks, Asif. That's awesome. And so Renaissance men and women for the next generation is what we're going to be, all creators. I can't draw a design if my life depended on it, so I better look for another job. Awesome. So moving on, like coming back to a little bit to sort of the cloud and edge, if you will, right? And both Akankshu, you and Sumit alluded to this a little bit, but more specifically, if there are entrepreneurs here who are looking to advance the state of the art, technical entrepreneurs, building for builders type of entrepreneurs who want to advance the state of the art, what are the areas and opportunities within cloud, edge, and the data engineering, if you will, where they could focus on?
I mean, if I knew the answer, I'd go to a startup, right? So let's talk, about the opportunities in general, right? Large models are unfortunately large and therefore very compute intensive. They're very memory intensive. They're very everything intensive, right? So the first opportunity is how do we make them more efficient for compute? And this is not just an edge problem. It's also a cloud problem. It's really expensive. Now, one can argue that's an advantage for a big company like us, right? Because we have the ability to, spend the money to train these large models. But serving them, which is when you make a query is way too expensive today, right? So the cheaper we can make it to serve them, the more it becomes, available in consumer apps, in any app, everywhere, right? I mean, as a side story, can you imagine every executive meeting right now and every board meeting right now? The CEO and the chairman of the board are saying, my kids are using ML, why can't you guys figure it out, right? I mean, so this is like the opportunity and the dilemma, which is ML engineering, like the software engineering around ChatGPT or LLMs or, I should say Palm AIs, APIs, is complex still. Actually putting it into a workflow is still complex. So it is hard for, the average company to go figure it out. And the compute cost doesn't make it any easier, right? If we could serve a model off a phone right now, a really, really nice model off the phone, just imagine all your apps. They would be totally different, right? I mean, I could talk to Google Maps offline. I can talk in real time, but without the cloud connected and get a summary, right, of whatever. I could tell it, hey, tell me all the restaurants which are open tonight and are likely to have a good vibe. And it would know what vibe I like, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities if you start marrying all these technologies together to build something amazing.
I agree with Sumit. I think the opportunity is going to be fairly broad. But other than the large language model itself, I think there's going to be opportunity at every layer of the stack. The large language models are very cost prohibitive, so it's not worth everyone investing in them. But right down to the chip level, like we're all seeing NVIDIA prices going higher. Like somebody has to be thinking of a better alternative there. Larger companies will invest, but is there an opportunity for a cost breakthrough there to do it more faster, cheaper, etc., or maybe even just cheaper? Then you go into the experience layer of it. And this is where Sabeer and Asif both alluded, like education seems like it is ripe for disruption. That element of personalization can go into everything from restaurant recommendations. We all love our Netflix recommendations. But what basic queries that I'm starting to use it for, like travel planning. I have 2 kids, I want to go for a vacation for a week. Who wants to deal with creating a spreadsheet where what are all the things we want to be seeing in the place? Just tell ChatGPT or Google Palm or Bard to just create a custom itinerary for you. And that is just scratching the surface. Like lawyers are already starting to very aggressively use it. Copy and marketing seems to be the first one that is getting disrupted. So any time where you are seeing text, image, video, just imagine a world that there's not going to be a human creating it moving forward. And obviously that makes it very difficult to know what is truth versus fiction. But that's unavoidable. As Sabeer said, that train has left the station. So we just have to be creative in both getting value out of it and just figuring out how we get our own spidey senses ready to detect truth from bullshit.
Akankshu, you just teed my next question up, which is perfect. And thanks, Sabeer, for taking the mic. Because I think there are tons of opportunities, but there are also challenges, right? I think deep fakes could be a huge challenge. Elections are coming up next year. We don't know what's truth, what's fake. And then there are ethical and other challenges. Maybe talk about what do you think are the challenges that might either hold these technologies back from us or prevent us from maximizing their potential?
Great question. I'll tell you something that happened this morning at 4 a.m. I got up and I got a crazy idea to type in a question.
Do you always wake up at 4 or it's just for the panel?
I will chat GPT.
Okay.
And I asked an ill-formed question in the morning. And the question was just summarize this book for me, and this is the author. And it hallucinated. It gave me kind of a fictitious answer, which I was like, this doesn't sound right. So I went back to sleep. And I woke up at 6:30 again, and I formed my question with more information than I provided to ChatGPT, and he gave me the right answer. So the same question, short one, it just cooked up something, and I asked it in specific about this author at this time, and this is what he's talking about, and it gave me the right answer.
So buyer beware, we ask savvy questions, make sure that you're not getting...
It's not perfect. It's got its flaws, which means, and this is what was called in the technical jargon is hallucination. So it cooked up when it could not think of a proper response. I don't know what it found, but it picked up a kind of a wrong response. And then it gave me the right answer when I provided with more information. So that is the danger of relying completely on a large language model without any curation. So you still have humans to curate who kind of understand what's going on over here, which means you cannot blindly build a service on just ChatGPT or ChatGPT-like system alone today. I don't know if that's going to change in the next year or two. They'll remove this hallucination effect, but that is one of the drawbacks.
So just we, yeah, go ahead.
And this is where entrepreneurs will create value. Like they will figure out what is the right sequence of prompts that gets you to the right experience for the target customer that you're going after. So both choosing the customer and then being really good at defining what is the creative experience you want to create for them. And then just it comes down to fine-tuning the model, whether it's at the edge or the cloud, and how do we make sure the right sequence of prompts are created.
If I may jump in, that's the other opportunity for entrepreneurs, which is the tools that help you in prompt engineering, right? So,
Yeah, absolutely. And so I like this. You have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. ChatGPT is all the rage. Doesn't mean the 40 years of computer science is thrown out of the window, right? We can still do a lot of innovation with CS. Asif, can you add a few more aspects or colors to this?
Yes. See, today, if you look at the zeitgeist, there is almost an irrational exuberance about these large language models. Everybody wants to learn about what it can do, but we seem to miss the fact of what it cannot do. And I'd like to speak more to that. See, in science, as scientists, people use long chain reasoning often to infer something. Somebody once on the internet gave this example that in the Tornado Alley, there are certain cities which are proximal to each other. One gets devastated quite regularly, the other doesn't. When you ask a large language model, it emits something answer that looks scientific, that looks very plausible. It's not hallucinating. It is doing what it is supposed to do using its technical thing, the next word prediction and so forth. But it is not the correct answer. So we have to know its limitation. That is one. The other thing we have to know is what have we taught it with? It has been taught with all the text that we know, but the things that it has been taught with is a mirror of us. We are not free from biases. We have sexism, we have racism, we have casteism, we have a host of problems, we have fears and phobias. And in a way, we haven't just educated this child well, we have also educated this child with a lot of our cultural baggage, which we are trying to divest of. We are aware of it. We would rather that the next generation of children, our next generation does not imbibe those. But they are getting encoded into these large language models, and our children are learning from those large language models now. And so what we have created is a party of perpetuating all that we actually don't want perpetuated. So speaking to the risks of this.
That's a fascinating topic. And along the same lines, like what about the fact that there are some lawsuits out there around large language models have used data that they may or may not have violated licenses. But to bring it down to a more practical question, what I have is if I am a Fortune 500 enterprise and I'm looking to embrace this technology, how do I put some guardrails around it? How do I make it safe so that I'm not exposing myself to poisoning to a large lawsuit future down in the line? Any ideas or thoughts or recommendations?
I think the Wild West, okay, so we are in the bazaar right now, right, and it's the Wild West. But when you go to an enterprise, right, they're going to work with a partner who understands the enterprise, and they're going to link these large language models to their data sources, right? So think of it this, you can give it any information and ask it to synthesize the answer, right? But the information, if you tell it, restrict yourself to this information, right? To my documentation, to my, for example, I'm running a support contact center, right? And limited to all my FAQs, all my documentation, all of my previous conversations in my customer center. And then you can actually dramatically reduce, probably eliminate most hallucinations. I do think you have to put the guardrails in place. I agree with that. But I think that's one of the opportunities to do a successful implementation. And I'm just giving you one example. I'm sure there are many more.
Hey, I'd like to speak to your point about the property, who owns it. To the extent that these large language models have learned from the knowledge that we all have collectively created, the creativity, the paintings, the art, and so forth, we need to fundamentally rethink the questions of jurisprudence. What is property ownership in this modern world now? Like, for example, if a company says, I trained the large language model, so therefore I will charge you licensing, which is happening today. People are not, and they have a perspective which is valid. Now, but the counter perspective is, what about the fact that we produced as human beings the knowledge, and why are we paying for it? So this needs re-questioning a lot of the things in jurisprudence and fundamental questions of property ownership. And I think these debates should happen now.
Just to add to that, I think the question is very top of mind for a lot of organizations. And there's sort of three different approaches, at least in my experiences and conversations, that seem to be coming out. One is the more public-facing LLM or ChatGPT and BARD offerings. They are trained on a lot of public data, and that's where a lot of the media attention is, and what data was fed into it, etc. And there'll be a little bit of a wild west period, but by and large, the business models will evolve, and I think things will settle a few years down the road. When it comes to larger enterprises, that is where two different shades seem to be playing out. One is, if you're from scratch using entirely your own proprietary data and just are borrowing the technique that is out there in the open source world, that's relatively clean. And any enterprise with a large amount of data is going to use a cloud provider like a Microsoft or Google to train their own model to create value for both them, their employees and their customers. But then we enter into this gray line where you took an open source model which was already trained on some baseline data, and then you either fine-tuned it, prompt engineered it, then added your own data to create some custom use case or value for yourself. There, I think we'll have to see how it actually plays out. That is much more messy in my experiences.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to solve all the problems here, but I would take this panel against GPT-3 anytime or any TiECon anytime. Thank you everyone for your thanks.